Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. I am Dr. Rimpi Arora, President of the Rotary Positivity Club and Honorary Member of the Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy. Currently, I am associated with Pinaka Media Works as a principal researcher on the film Rab the Awaz. It is my absolute honor to host this session today on the role of teachers and educators in promoting inclusive education. Education is a powerful tool that shapes our future, and true progress happens when it comes inclusive, accessible, and empowering for all. Teachers and educators play important role in this transformation. So today we have to discuss this crucial topic. We have with us the distinguished guest, Dr. Shoba Odunavar from India. She is a leading expert in inclusive education and rehabilitation. Welcome, Dr. Shoba. It is a pleasure to have you with us today. To begin,
Thank you.
could you please, yeah. So today, to begin with this session, could you please introduce yourself and share about your journey in the field of inclusive education and rehabilitation? Over to you, Dr. Shobha.
Thank you, Dr. Rimpi. First and foremost, let me thank to Rotary World Disability Advocacy Club, which is having me here. It is my privilege to be a part of this session. And thank you, Dr. Rimpi, for having me here again. Because of you, I am here. I am here and associating with Rotary Club. So, to introduce myself, I'm Shoba Odunavar. Basically, I'm a teacher for children with hearing impairment. My journey started as a teacher. So I have pursued my education right from the diploma to a PhD in the field of hearing impairment for studying for the children with hearing impairment. So I worked as a teacher educator nearly about 12 years, and my journey in the field of inclusive education started when I decided to become pursue a PhD. When I was thinking I have to go for a PhD, and the trending topic those days is on inclusive education. So that's how I got an interest in inclusive education, and I have chosen the topic related to inclusive education. When I started doing research on the topics and reviews and doing search, then uh, interest towards inclusive education has evolved, and inclusive education is for the children with disability. That's how inclusive education and rehabilitation comes together. If you do a rehabilitation, child will come to an inclusive classroom. So that leads for me to work towards the inclusive education, and there are several papers have come up on the inclusive education, and I also contributed for the modules which are developed by my own organization on inclusive development. That's how my journey started in inclusive education and rehabilitating children with various disabilities. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Shobha, as you mentioned, you have a vast experience in this field. So, I just want to know that why is inclusive education is essential in today's academic landscape, and how the perception has changed or evolved over the years, as you have also experienced being number of years in this field. So, could you elaborate on it?
Yeah, definitely. So, inclusive education is in essential in today's academic landscape. Why? Because it has a transformative impact on individuals and society. There is a transformative impact. That's how it become very essential. So, over a period of time, the perception of inclusive education has significantly evolved, so reflecting on a growth commitment to equality, diversity, and social justice. That's how it has its own essential. If you want me to elaborate more on this, inclusive education has become more important to promote equality and non discrimination. Gone were the days where there was a discrimination for children with disability into education sector. To break that discrimination, inclusive education has given the more focus to provide the equality and to consider it as a non-discrimination. So inclusive education is important for promoting the equality and non-discrimination. Also, it enhances learning for all. If you say inclusive education, if you wanted to see the significant essential of the inclusive education in today's academic era, it gives the chance for everybody. If we say inclusive education classroom, each and every child will come together. There are diversified learners in the inclusive classroom, so everyone will get the learning opportunity. So for everybody, inclusive education enhances the learning. Also, it fosters the social cohesion. That means cultural empathy will be there, respect will be for there for everybody, and children will learn in a team. Teamwork will be there among the peer group, and they also prepare for the life. It is a global interconnectivity among the society. And if you also see the importance of inclusive education, we can see empower marginalized student. When we say inclusive
Hmm.
education or inclusive classroom, every child will get a admission under our
Hmm.
right to education act. Also, every child get the opportunity to be in the inclusive classroom where they get the benefit of tailored support learning alongside
Hmm.
peer group help, fostering their sense of belongingness, and also self-worthiness will be there in the classroom. Again, if you wanted me to put emphasis on the inclusive education essentiality in the today's academic landscape, we can see that student will be prepared for the diverse environment. When child will come to inclusive education, they will get the exposure of variety of culture and the customs or the rituals what we prepare. So diversified environment will be uh, uh, given opportunity for the children in the inclusive classroom to prepare themselves. So evolution of perception we can inclusive education. Yes.
Okay. So as you mentioned that why it is essential in today's landscape, academic landscape, to like develop them in the diverse environment. So what are the biggest challenges teacher educator face while implementing the inclusive education?
Yeah, this is a very, very crucial question, and we need to address this question. So there are a lot of challenges we can say when it comes to practice the inclusive education in today's scenario. One is the insufficient teacher training. So, as for inclusive education, teachers are getting trained into a specific disability courses. When if you see children a teacher with special education, when you see a teacher with general background, they will be trained towards a general curriculum. But when you see the holistic inclusive education philosophy, in-depth training is lacking for our teachers. So there is insufficient teacher training, and if
Okay.
they are trained also, they will be having a heavy workload and time constraint. If we see the general classroom in Indian scenario, we can see 1 is to 80, 1 is to 60, 1 is to 50. So in that case, the workload for the teachers, heavy workload will be there. That sometimes become a challenge for teachers to implement the inclusive education. Also, inadequate resource and support. We need a
Hmm.
lot of resources to practice inclusive education. So resources are limited with us. And for most important point is negative attitude and beliefs towards inclusive education philosophy or towards education of children with disability. Many are still they think that these children should go to a special school. They are not fit for the inclusive classroom. This is the negative attitude or belief we see. So, if you ask me to my experience, my first study paper, I did a small study in 2015 on teachers' attitude, knowledge, and competency about inclusive education. If when you see the result, I have seen majority of the teachers have shown their uh, uh, negative attitude towards including children with disability into their classroom. So that I can see that till today teachers have majority of the teachers think that these children bringing them into a normal classroom becomes the difficult, and training them into a normal classroom is near to impossible. That was the attitude we can see. And also behavioral management issues, one of the challenges we can find among the management or among the teachers or among the classroom environment. This behavioral management issues is one of the challenge, and lack of individualized support. As we say that general classroom is having a more strength, giving a individualized support to every child, it becomes the challenge for the teacher, because children with the disabilities need a individualized attention, needs a individualized support and planning. That is lacking when we see the inclusive education, and that one become the challenge for implement the inclusive education. And lastly, if you wanted to see, ask me what is the challenge, the biggest challenge is limited understanding of disability. So people will
Okay.
won't in depth understand what exactly disability, and there are different types of disabilities, and their characters nature is different,
Diff-
and their needs are different. That
Correct.
understanding is lacking among the professional who are working in inclusive education. We can see that these are the challenges for implementing inclusive education. Yeah.
So I agree with you, Dr. Shobha. As you mentioned, there are insufficient teacher trainings, lack of resources, negative attitude of the teachers. So as you mentioned, you have conducted this study in 2015, and now it's been almost 10 years. So has the teacher's attitude has changed towards person with disability in India? And if yes, how do teachers, educator act as a facilitator of learning in promoting inclusive education?
Yes. Yeah. With respect to teachers' attitude, yes, there is a change in attitude, but it is not up to the mark what we are expected. Teachers have changed
Okay.
their attitude to accept the child into a classroom. They are okay,
Okay.
child can come to our normal classroom, but to give them a individualized attention, to prepare for them separately, or to include them in each and every activities of the inclusive classroom, that their little more positive attitude should come among the teachers of the inclusive classroom. So there is a change, I can say, among the attitude. So when it comes to, as a teacher educator, if we need to facilitate in promoting inclusive education, there are certain areas we need to focus. Among that, one is
Okay.
we have to develop a teacher's competency.
Hmm.
Competency to manage the diversified classroom. As a teacher, we have to accept that we will be having a diversified classroom. For that, we have to have a competency. So, pre-service training programs should focus on the competency, and also in-service teachers program should build a essential competency for inclusive education. That includes knowledge about the disability, diverse learning needs, types of disability, cultural background, and inclusive teaching strategies. These all should include into a knowledge part. And if when it comes to a skills, they should have a skills of developing the instructional materials, planning, and implementing the plans based on the individual needs of the children. And also, finally, they have to change their attitude. We
Okay.
should promote the awareness of diversity. There should be a we should proud to have a diversity into our classroom, encouraging the collaborative practices. It's not one man show. Everybody's work. It's a teamwork. We should encourage collaborative practices, and we should have a inclusive modeling practices. Also, the lastly, teachers' self-efficacy is more important. These are all the areas as a facilitator we can focus to make teachers more competent enough to uh, work with children with the disability into an inclusive classroom.
So, as you mentioned, that teachers need a self-efficacy is also one of the criteria. So, in
Yes.
India, is there any difference between the general teacher, or is there any special educator training? Is there any process to get certified certification for the teacher training or as a certified special educator? Can you elaborate on it?
Yes. So in India,
Yeah.
we have a council dedicated for manpower development in the field of disability, Rehabilitation
Okay.
Council of India, under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So this council is dedicated for producing the manpower in the field of special education. There are various courses for different disabilities are running from the diploma to PhD level. We have a different level of teacher training programs. So
Hmm.
along with
Okay.
that, now recent development into teacher education programs pertaining to inclusive education, Council has introduced integrated inclusive education programs, which is a 4 years of training program where teachers or candidate will get opportunity to learn the entire education system. It includes general education papers, it includes general education practical component, also a inclusive education classroom. Along with that, a specified disability specific component into a teacher training program. So we have a various teacher training programs running into a in India.
Okay. So that it means that to become a special educator or certified trainer, we need to have these courses done
Yes,
during the
yes,
course
yes,
of, yeah. Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. So moving further, as you said that we need a teacher educator has to be get a special education, or they need to get the pass the special courses. So moving towards the inclusive education. So in what ways do teachers educators promote inclusivity and diversity in educational settings?
Okay, so it is our duty as a teacher educators to promote inclusivity and also diversity, because all
Yeah.
inclusive classrooms are diversified in nature. In that, one
Okay.
is training teacher on inclusive practices. So training courses itself includes the inclusive practices, such as
Okay.
inclusive teaching methods we need to understand, and we should get the hands-on experience of implementing the inclusive teaching methods.
Okay.
There are standard teaching methods are there for inclusive education. For example, differentiated instruction, which tailored made lessons for accommodate diversified learning styles and abilities. And also we have universal design for learning, which creates the accessible curricula with that removes barriers for all students. It may not be a child with disability, also for other marginalized children, and also high achievers can accommodate into a this evolved method called universal design for learning. Also, encouraging cultural representation. There should be a
Hmm.
cultural representation related to a language, ideology, or educational materials. All this should focus the cultural representation, and we should again, what we emphasized earlier, collaboration. There should be a promoting collaboration. Teachers, families, specialists, everyone should come together. There should be a network of them. There should be a collective efforts to bring a change into a life of children with disability. Also, we should address the biases and stereotypes. There are challenges about use of inclusive languages, or challenges about biases in participation. So many times it happens, he or she is a child with disability. It's not okay to take them in particular event. Participation may be restricted for them. So these all biases we need to overcome. For that, we can promote inclusivity. So by overcoming and bringing them in a one place, we should address the biases and stereotyped behaviors in the inclusive uh, environment. And also, we
Okay.
should build the
Yeah. Continue.
we should build inclusive classroom communities. Okay, group activities in each and every activity which is happening in the classroom. We should have a inclusive communities and alternative participation method. Sometimes because of severity of the disability, children may find difficulty to into a normal setting. We should have an alternative participation method, and we should advocate self reflection by the children. So these are the certain ways and means or the methods which we can follow to bring the inclusivity and to address the diversity. Yeah.
So as you mentioned that you use different strategies, and person with disabilities or the student with disabilities having the diverse need, and there is need for universal design learning, right? So
Yes.
can you elaborate with the example with specific disability and severe disability, what kind of the special strategies that special educator or as an educator somebody use to overcome that problem of the person with disability?
See, universal design of learning is one of the method. Method itself
Yeah,
is designed
says that.
to to accommodate each and every child. So here we are not
Yes.
going to focus more on this child is having this problem, so I need to address him separately. No, my plan
Okay.
itself in such a way that each and every
Okay.
child should accommodate into that. In the sense, uh, universal design of learning is having a three major principles. Okay, multiple
Yes.
means representation, multiple means of engagement, and multiple means of presentation. So if
Yes.
my presentation is involves multiple ways, either it may be audio, either it may be visual, or it may be kinesthetic. So whatever the possible way to involve by me to provide the information to a child, all those ways I am going to involve in the universal design of learning. That means there is no question of addressing a single child. Every child
Okay.
will be addressed by the method what I am using. Similarly, for expression, I'll give all the opportunity whatever the way child wanted to express. If child may not be able to write, he can say it. If child finds a difficulty in oral expression, he can draw it. If child finds difficulty in drawing or writing, he can just use any devices. He can just type on that. So any ways the child wanted to express, I'll allow child to use his own way to express himself, and similarly engaging a different child. So universal design itself is a very standardized method which involves everyone into a teaching learning process. Yeah.
So as you mentioned, it is the one of universal design itself covers multiple aspects. So is it become difficult for the teacher to implement the universal design learning within the classroom, or is it become difficult for the student on the other hand? Are they able to cooperate with the different strategies that are implemented by the teacher within the common classroom? Like for example, if you have a student with visual disability, one student with hearing impairment, and other student with intellectual disability within the classroom with general students, how would one teacher would able to manage, or how do the one teacher would able to apply universal design learning in the common classroom?
Yeah. So as I said, Universal design itself is the design which addresses everybody's needs because it has the
Yeah.
multiple ways of in three principles. So as you taken the
Yes.
example of child with visual impairment, child with hearing impairment, and also child with intellectual disability. So when at the time of the planning, so all of us we know if our planning is pakka, our implementation, our 50% of work will be done with the planning. If you plan
Okay.
properly,
Hmm.
implementation will may not take much difficulty by anybody. So
Okay.
this principle is applies for everywhere. Okay, so planning is very much important when we say universal design of learning. When teacher plans her lesson, so she should
Hmm.
see that all these children needs should be met. For example, she is teaching a small topic of by the from social science. Let us take one
Hmm.
example. Today she is taking one
Yeah.
paragraph. She wanted to teach that. So when it comes
Yes.
to a the child with visual impairment,
Hmm.
she should add some audio lessons that can be given to child first, or some braille lessons should be there. Those lessons should be given to a child in advance. If child with intellectual disability, if he finds difficulty to follow the full length of paragraph, he can be given few major points. Bulletin points can be given to a child with
Hmm.
intellectual disability. So such planning should be done well in advance. So it is one time investment and planning. If proper planning will be done at the beginning, I suppose
Okay.
it will help teacher to manage the class.
Okay. So that means planning is one of the crucial aspect that teachers need to consider while catering the needs of children with disability or the person with disability in the common classroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So moving further, Dr. Shobha, is there any systematic challenges are also there? And if yes, how do teachers, educators advocate for that some systematic changes to support the inclusive education? Because being a
Yeah.
teacher, we know there are systematic challenges are there. And how do teachers advocate for those systematic changes to support the inclusive education?
So teacher advocacy is very much important here, as you say. As we as a teacher, we need to advocate for that. To advocate for inclusive education to bring practice, I would say there are three major points which we need to consider. One is at
Okay.
policy level. Policy level,
Okay.
uh, the policies should be emphasis on implementing guidelines. Okay, inclusive
Okay.
education implementing guidelines, it should involve. As a teacher, we should advocate for that. We are all believe now RTI is the policy. So policy says that you have to take child into admission. You should not reject any child. Zero rejection policy. So we are taking because policy
Okay.
is saying that you need to take. So similarly, a strong policy should be there to implement the inclusive education. As a teacher, we should advocate for that, and also enhancing teacher training programs, teacher education programs, isn't it? It may be in service or it may be a pre-service. Continuous professional development should be there for a teachers. So majority of the teacher during my course of like whenever we go for training, we used to hear like we were not taught on this. So there is no time for us to learn. Like we are not getting the sufficient training on this particular aspects or on these topics. So continuous teacher professional development is very important. That as a teacher we need to advocate for that. To get, it is our right to develop our professional skills, which helps us for promoting the inclusive education. And also we should also advocate for collaborative fostering for collaboration. That is very important. It's not only a teacher's job, everybody's responsibility to make inclusive education successful. And we should promote for attitudinal change, and our beliefs we should change that also. If as a teacher I believe that by changing my attitude I can teach a child in an inclusive classroom. Similarly, I can promote somebody else. I can motivate someone else, telling that if you change your attitude, obviously we can teach the child in a inclusive classroom. And also
Yeah.
we have to enhance the learning leadership training programs. These are all the certain areas as a teacher we should advocate to promote the inclusive education.
So, can you highlight some courses that person or the teacher should take it for becoming a certified teacher trainer in India or certified special educator in India?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, uh, Rehabilitation Council of India is running many courses like uh, DED, BEd, and MEd, that is diploma, bachelor's, and master's level courses in specific disabilities, like it may be hearing impairment, it may be visual impairment, and intellectual disability, autism, and learning disability, and multiple disability courses are there, and courses on deaf blindness. So these are all the courses run by monitored by Rehabilitation Council of India. These are all full-time courses for 2 years. If specific disabilities anyone can learn, they can go for any of these courses. And along with that, RCI is coming up with, as I said earlier, integrated inclusive training program where they can learn more on inclusive education. These are all the certified courses. Certification will be done by Rehabilitation Council of India. As we are the special educators, we will be having a, RCI CRR number, which is the number is given for us recognizing as a certified professionals to work with children with disability. Without this certification, we are not eligible to work. That means we should recognized by the Rehabilitation Council of India. Without this certificate working, it will be treated as an offense by any candidate. So we have a strong teacher training programs to support education of children with disabilities. Either it may be a specific disability related education, or it may be inclusive education programs.
Okay. So, as you mentioned that these are the programs that prepare the teacher to become a special educators. So, I just wondering that I have a question regarding like these are these courses to make a teacher as a special educator at the school or secondary level. What are the policies or the what are the courses that are there to make a teacher as a special educator at a higher level? Like for BA, like as you know that in India, you have experience in deaf and this like hearing impairment field, but their number at the higher education is very less. So what is your take on that? How do we increase their enrollment? Is it the teacher role becomes important here, or the government role become important, or institutional role become important? How do we increase their number at higher education level?
Okay, so bringing a child, for example, if you are taking a child with hearing impairment, so bringing
Yeah.
child into a higher education, it's everybody's responsibility. It starts from the home. If you
Okay.
identify a child with hearing impairment in an early age, if you given early intervention in a very early stage, child can automatically come to a normal classroom. That means child's language develops, child's speech development will be there, communication will be there, then child will come to a normal society to a higher education without any difficulty. If child
Okay.
is identified in a later stage, there everybody's support, everybody's involvement is important to promote the child from the beginning. It's not like that when child comes to 18 years, so we have to fight for the higher education. So higher education for when it comes to a child with hearing impairment, it totally depend upon his language level, his communication language, in the sense there should be adequate language development which he can comprehend the knowledge. Language, it doesn't mean that again the verbal language. Language can be a sign language
Yes,
also,
sign
because
language.
sign language
Yeah.
is the language for our deaf community. So whatever may be the language for that matter, he or she should have a adequate language development, which become the base for communication, which become the base for acquiring the knowledge. So if child is having these abilities, no one is stops for him to come to a higher education. So it's all of us, our ability to create the environment for a child to acquire the language, develop his communication skill, okay,
Okay.
and have the knowledge on whatever he's learning. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Shobha, your insights have been truly valuable in understanding the role of teacher in fostering inclusivity. As we conclude, I would just like to one more question from you, that what message would you like to give to educators, policymakers, and society to create a more inclusive learning environment for all?
Yes. So when it comes to teachers, for the educators,
Yeah.
my advice would be celebrate the diversity. My advice would be to the teachers, we should embrace the diversity as a strength. So, as a teacher, if I see diversity as a strength, there's a lot of opportunity to learn when you accept the diversity. So, I would advise all the educators, all the teachers who are passionately working for children with disability or who are passionate towards inclusive education, first and foremost, celebrate the diversity. When it comes to policymakers, I would urge for the policymakers that prioritize the inclusive education. We should
Yes.
prioritize inclusive education and also support for professional development. So once we complete our training program, if we want to after 2 years, 3 years, if there is no professionally development among ourselves, we become nothing. So there should be update for us so that we are lively be in the classroom. So policymakers should make it compulsory for the professional development of anybody who is engaged into inclusive education, and also engage the stakeholders. Policy makers should focus on engaging the policy stakeholders, because it's not one person job. Everybody comes together, then only we can bring the changes. So we should give the importance for stakeholder engagement. Everybody is very much important, right from the parents, from to the top level management. Authorities are very much needed to bring any changes into a inclusive classroom. And when it comes to a society, we should again become a champion for inclusion. That means we should, as a society or as a community, we should promote, we should support to a child with disability. Again, we should respect the diversity. As India is known for diversity, we have a diversity and we have a unity among the diversity. So diversity is there everywhere. If we have a diversity, then only we can see the beauty in everywhere. So as a community, as a society, we should respect the diversity, we should accept the diversity, and we should celebrate the diversity. In that celebration, as a community, we should support the families who are having the children with disability. We should support the families to upbring their children or to motivate them to be in the part of the society.
So it means that it is a collective responsibility for all the stakeholders so that we can able to create the inclusive environment.
Definitely.
Um,
Definitely.
yeah. So, Dr. Shobha, if somebody want to contact you on what, can you share your email ID? If somebody want to approach or want to know more about the strategies in India, or somebody want to contact you for further information, is there any email ID you can share with us?
Yes, definitely I can share my personal email ID. Do you
Yeah.
want me to spell it out here?
You yes, you can spell it out.
Yeah. SHOBHA, that is Shoba, dot ODUNAVAR, Odunavar 2010 at gmail.com.
So you may type in the chat box also so that it will be stay here in the comments.
Definitely, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to do. I
Are
think
you or may I? Okay, I'll do
I'm not.
it. SHO SHO
BH
BHA.
dot
Yeah.
ODU
ODU. Yeah.
NA NA
N NA.
VA VA
Yeah.
R
NAVA.
R
Okay.
R for yeah 2010
2010
at
at gmail.
gmail.com.
Okay. So it's SHOBHA dot ODUNAVAR 2010 at gmail.com. So anybody who wants to tie up with Dr. Shoba, they may reach her to through this email ID. So thank you, Dr. Thank you so much, Dr. Shoba, for sharing your expertise and inspiring us all. Your work is making real difference in the lives of many. So, and thank you to our audience for being a part of this important conversation. Let's continue to working towards an education system that truly includes and empowers everyone. So, thank you so much, Dr. Shobha.
Thank you so much for having me for this wonderful session. Uh,
Yeah,
it is reaching to many, so I am happy to receive any comments or any suggestion for me, or anybody wanted to contact me. I welcome everyone. Thanks to Dr. Rimpi and thanks to Ken and also thanks to Rotary entire family for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to everybody.